Welcome back, YouTube. Sensei Domino here. This is part 3 of the vintage baseball cards from my most recent COMC orders. This is years 1976 to 1979. And I'll start with a 1976 Topps Robin Yount. Right here on this edge, if you can see, there's a little bit of bulging right there. And when I looked at the scan, I could see this chip, but that's all I thought it was. And when it got here, if you look on the back, you can see that it was kind of like pushed in or pressed in. So I was a little disappointed in that damage and the severity of it. I saw that stain as well. I was okay with that, but that's a little worse than I was expecting. So a little disappointed, but it's still a second year Robin Yount. So happy to add it to the collection, even if I do end up eventually replacing it. Here's a 1976 Topps Mike Schmidt. A little bit of edge damage right there, a little fisheye. There's a little corner damage down here, but overall it's a pretty decent card, and I think this is the oldest Mike Schmidt in my collection now, so happy to add that. Here's this teammate, Steve Carlton, one of the best lefty pitchers of all time. Down here at the bottom, there's a little pink staining on this edge, if you can see that. So, you know, it's not in the best shape, but corners are sharp, edges are sharp, centering isn't too terribly bad, maybe a little off top to bottom, but still a pretty nice card. This next one, on the other hand, this Willie Mccovey, this card right here has like a divot in it. There you can see that. And it looks like the print was printed on top of it. Plus, if you look, there's a whole bunch of little blue dots even up here in the sky. So, you know, a little disappointed in this one as well. But I do collect Willie Mccovey, so happy to kind of add this 76 to the collection. Again, even if I end up having to replace this one sometime in the future, it's a okay placeholder, I suppose. Here's a 1976 Topps Pete Rose. I've been buying quite a few of the 1970s Pete Rose cards lately. This card right here is pretty nice. Centering's a little off, but I'm okay with that. I think eventually Pete Rose gets in the Hall of Fame. I don't think you can have a Hall of Fame without having the all-time hits leader in it. For that matter, I don't think you can have a Hall of Fame without the all-time home runs leader in it. You know, and right now you probably have some steroid users that have already kind of snuck in under the radar, or even on the radar. You know, but I think eventually, because of that, I think it opens the door for Pete Rose to get in, and hopefully that opens the door for Buck Weaver and Shoeless Joe Jackson to get in, because I think they're deserving as well. So I think at some point, you know, even if it takes 20, 30 years, I think eventually they all get in the Hall of Fame. So want to add Pete Roses wherever I can. Here's a 1976 Topps Babe Ruth, all-time All-Stars. I mean, what can you say about the Bambino? Probably the greatest player of all time. I like to think Willie Mays is in that conversation, but I still think Babe Ruth has it. And I won't be affording any type of playing days Babe Ruths anytime soon, so if ever. So this is probably the best way for me to be able to get, you know, quote-unquote vintage Babe Ruth card added to the collection. This and, you know, like the 1962 Babe Ruth special cards or something like that. And here's his teammate Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse. Kind of the same story with Lou Gehrig. You know, one of the few chances for me to get a vintage Lou Gehrig card in the collection, so wanted to pick this one up as well. pretty clean. Nice sharp corners, pretty good centering. Here's a card I'm adding to the Carl Yastrzemski collection, 1976 Topps. It's pretty clean, pretty sharp. Kind of working my way through this Yastrzemski player run. Next we have a 1977 Dale Murphy rookie card. If I remember right, I think Dale Murphy had the most home runs in the entire decade of the 1980s. And he's not in the Hall of Fame. I think there's something wrong with that. I don't know if he'll ever get in because I'm not sure his stats stack up to what the voters look for. But I think anybody that leads a decade in home runs should get a lot more consideration than this guy has. I watched quite a few of his games in the 80s and 90s, when he was on the Braves, on the TBS Superstation. So kind of excited to add his rookie card to my collection. Here's another Hall of Famer, Bruce Sutter, 1977 Topps. I'm kind of glad he finally got in. I think he was one of the first relief pitchers that kind of popularized the one-inning save. So I think he was well deserving of getting into the Hall of Fame. And happy to add his rookie card to the collection. Here's a 1977 Topps Dave Winfield. There's a couple fish eyes or whatever, but otherwise it's a pretty sharp card. If I remember right, he was drafted in 3 different sports. I believe he was drafted in not only baseball, but I think football and basketball. So that's pretty cool about Dave Winfield. Here's a 1977 Topps Brooks Robinson. I believe this is his last card. I'm not sure, but I think this is his last card. There is, I don't know if I can find it. There's a little bit of a wrinkle somewhere over here. So I'm a little disappointed about that, but still happy to add another Brooks Robinson to the collection. Here is a 1977 Peachy Thurman Munson. Little off center, and it's got that rough cut, but I like the rough cut. I think I've mentioned that before. And Thurman Munson was a heck of a player. Died way too soon, tragically. Plane crash. I like these backs on the O-Peachies too. A little bit of a fisheye right there. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the condition of this card. Moving on to 1978. Here's a Robin Yount. Pretty nice card. Pretty nicely centered. Pretty clean. Little corner ding there, little corner ding there, but overall, real nice shape. Here's a 1978 Topps Pete Rose. I actually have this card, but there's a little bit of corner damage, so I wanted to get a better copy since it's relatively cheap. And I like the condition of this one much better than the other one. It's a little off center on the back, but I think it's pretty centered on the front. Maybe it's a little off, yeah, now that I'm looking better. But still, it's far better shape than the one that I have, so happy to add that one. Here's a 1978 Topps 1977 Strikeouts Leaders. Phil Niekro, Nolan Ryan. Pretty sharp. I think there's a little corner of wear right there, but just look at Nolan Ryan's strikeout total, 341. Phil Niekro at 262, and then next is 244. I mean, you look at 1 to 3, and Nolan Ryan almost had 100 strikeouts more than number 3, Dennis Leonard. I mean, that's how dominant he was. He was a special pitcher, let me tell you. This card right here, I'm actually going to pull out of the top loader to show you. This is one of the cards I reported to COMC and got a refund on. This right here, this 1978 Topps Gaylord Perry in a Ranger uniform. Looks like Freddy Krueger got a hold of this one. There's a crease right here, crease right here, crease right here, crease right here, crease right here. 5 creases on this thing. How did this get put in the EX category? I'll never know. I paid less than $1 for it, but it was so bad I had to mention it. I mean, that's not just a wrinkle. I mean, there's actually a 6th crease right here. That's just horrible. So, yeah. I ended up getting a replacement for this with the refund money. So hopefully that one shows up in much better condition than this one. That's just not right. I'm glad it was a cheap card and not something I paid like $100 for. That would have really made me mad. Here's a 1979 Topps Reggie Jackson, Mr. October. I always liked this card, never had it. It's in super nice shape, super centered. Corner's nice and sharp. So happy to add it. This card right here, I have 2 different copies of, so I'm going to show you. This is 1979 Topps Mike Schmidt, but also one of these is the Burger King. And let me see, they obviously look like the same card, but if you look on the back, one of them's number 610, the other's number 16. So I don't know how these were distributed, but I would assume that these were available at Burger King's in Philadelphia. So the Burger King copy will probably be much more limited of a print run than the base. So happy to pick these both up. And next we have 1979 Topps George Brett. A little off center, but still a pretty nice card. I don't have a whole lot of vintage George Brett, so happy to add this one to the collection. And finally, we have 1979 Topps Willie Mccovey. This one, unfortunately, has a wrinkle. Let me see if I can get it in the light. There it is right there. There's a wrinkle right here. So a little disappointed in that. I mean, the centering was bad as it is. I didn't pay a whole lot for it, so I didn't make a big deal about it, so I didn't mention it to COMC. But this is another one that I sort of considered bringing up to COMC, but I just decided not to. I didn't think it was severe enough. But still pretty disappointed in the damage, because, you know, you look at like this, you know, on a scan, and it just doesn't show up. Stuff like that just doesn't show up. It's not prominent enough, but it's there, and a little disappointing. Anyway, that's the last of the vintage baseball cards. I will do a modern baseball card video, probably with the rest of the baseball cards that I have, because I mean it's a little less than 50. I think I can get it in a video. I'll probably do that later on the night, so I can post all the baseball stuff together, and I'll probably do the football and the basketball tomorrow to wrap up the order. But until then, thanks for watching the video, and I'll talk to you again soon.